Hello, I'd like to welcome you to the book of Jonah, the first chapter, a short book, but it has 4 chapters, so there'll be 4 seminars. The book of Jonah is, I think, is our fourth smallest work done by one author, and the uh, format we will be following will be the same as it has been. We will be showing the yellow words, which will be in English derivatives from the Greek New Testament found on our website bookstore, and we'll be going through that. And then the purple will be the article that has a same spelling ending as the word it modifies, and the orange is the word that doesn't appear in English derivatives. It's in the Old Testament and can be added if you'd like. So we'll return now. Start now with the book of Jonah. I'll read it in Greek, one verse at a time. Ke ageneto logos kyriou pros ionan ton tu amathi legon. Then the word, the logos, we mentioned before, anytime it's leg or log, it has to do with speaking or a word. The logos of the Lord, kyriou, the kyrios eleison, we mentioned that before, as the derivative. And came, pros, prosthetic, as a English derivative, something that's near a person and artificial arm or limb. And the pros is a prefix used in English. And the word of the Lord came to Jonah, Ionan is how it's pronounced, the son of Amittai, legon, saying. So there's the logos and the legon, the lug, the log, leg. Anastati, anastithi, ke porevthiti is Ninevei, tin polin, tin megalin, ke kirixon en afti, oti anevi, e kravgi tis kakias aftis pros me. Rise up, God says, and go unto Nineveh. Nineveh was a city that was in the Mesopotamian area, which is today Iraq. I'm not sure about how long this seminar will be read, but it was Iraq in 2008. The great city, the Megali, we have a megaton bomb, the Megali, anything with the mega is great. Polin, a polis, is a city, a metropolis, the great city. And proclaim in, being the preposition in English, proclaim in it, preach in it, kyrixon, a kyrix was a herald in the Bible, somebody that would yell it out loud, not just to go into a building and preach, but to proclaim it out loud. For the kravgi, the cry of its evils, ascended to, pros again, to me. Ke anestiti ionas, to fevgin is tharsis, ek prosopou kyriou, ke katevi is eopin, ke evre plion vadizon is tharsis, ke edoke to navlon aftu, ke anevi is afto, tu plevse met afton is tharsis, ek prosopou kyriou. And Jonah, Ionas, rose up to flee. Fevgin, we have a fugitive as the English derivative for the fev. Fevgin is Tharsis, Tarshish. We're not really sure where Tarshish was, but it was someplace that was the opposite probably of Nineveh. Ek from, eccentric being a prefix, ek from the center, from the face of the Lord, in this case, Kyriou. And he went down into Joppa, which is in the northern part of Israel, and he found a boat proceeding to Tarshish. and he gave his novlon, the fare, booking. And in this case, it has to do with a boat, the novlon, nautica being a English derivative, or nausea, the nav. He gave his fare, and and ascended into it to sail with them into Tarshish from from the face of Kiriu. So uh, apparently Jonah didn't want to do what God wanted him to do. How much more us? A lot of times we flee the opposite direction and do the opposite of what God wanted. But God had a plan for Jonah, and He has a plan for us also. But Jonah's was pretty drastic. And it continues in verse 4. Ke Kyrios exigere pneuma epi ti thalasin ke ageneto klithon megas en ti thalasi ke to plion ekin dhineve to sin trivine. And Kyrios raised up pneuma, a wind. And we had earlier books here that we went through. The pneuma was a spirit. Same word, pneumatics, having to do with air. In this case, the Lord raised up a wind. You could put spirit in there, but wouldn't upon the sea. It wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I think now you can kind of see how these words are used in the Old and the New Testament, and this is a good case. And so the context decrees what the meaning is, and sometimes it's not always easy. The Lord raised up a pneuma, a wind, epicentric, or something that's upon. The thalassen, the sea. Thalatic pertains for the sea, an English derivative. And there became a great swell. A megas, we had it before. The megaton, English derivative, mega, a great swell in thalasi, in the sea. And the boat was exposed to danger of breaking up. So here's Jonah taking off the opposite direction, but a giant wind rose up in the sea, and the boat was exposed to danger of breaking up. What does that remind us of? It reminds us of Jesus being on the Lake of Galilee and his disciples being in danger of the boat sinking, and they woke him up. And verse 5, Ke FOV thison e naftiki, Ke anavon ekastos pros ton theon avtu, Ke ekvolin epi santo ton skavon, ton into plio, istin thalason, tu kufisthine apavton. Ionas they katevi is tinkilin tu pliu, ke akatheve ke erenke. And the mariners, the naftiki, the nautical, has the English derivative nautical. The mariners, FOV, the phobos, phove, whenever the phi omicron vita appears, something to do with fearing. The mariners feared and yelled out each to prosthetic we had before, towards his God, theon, theology being the derivative. They yelled out each to his God, whoever they had on this boat. And they made an expulsion of the items, the ton scavone. See, the article spelling agrees with the last two letters, ton scavone, and the genitive plural here. And they made an expulsion of the items of the ones in the boat into the thalason, the sea, to lighten of them. So they're lightening the boat now because of this overloaded condition of the boat with all this cargo and rough sea. It could swamp the boat sitting low in the water, and it could turn sideways and a wave could come in and sink the boat very easily. So they were lightening it so this way the boat would sit up higher above the water. But Jonah went down into the hold of the boat. There's a teen kelim, into the hole of the boat. The again the genitive. This is in the accusative of the boat. Yeah, and he went to sleep and he snored a renche. It's almost a snoring sound to it. So he went to sleep. I had a sailboat, and my son was maybe he was like 8 or 9 years old, and we would go to Catalina Island from Newport Beach, and we would every once in a while hit this really rough weather or something. He'd get scared. So what did he do? He'd go down below and up to the front of the boat, and well, he'd sleep for 6 or 7 hours. Never heard him snore, but that's what he did. That's what these men did. I mean, that's what Jonah did while these other men are up there praying to their God. But spiritual Jonah, what does he do? He goes down and falls asleep and snores, the one that you would expect the spiritual things from him, the prophet. And I kind of wonder how much we snore when God puts us in these positions. And ke prosilthe prosavton o tro refs ke ipanavto tc renkis anasta epikalu ton theon su opos diasosi o theos imas ke umi apolometha. And the captain drew near to him, and he said to him, why do you snore? Rise up, call upon your God, ton theon su. Theon, theology is again the derivative, so that theos, O theos, God, diasosi, O theos, should save us, O theos. God should preserve us, not save us, I'm sorry. He should preserve us or deliver us. And going back to my King James background, remembering the word and saving, but here he's preserving us, or saving us in this case from being drowned, but it's not in salvation anything to do with eternal security or deliverance, but preserve us, and in no way we should be destroyed. So he's calling on Jonah to pray to his God. In verse 1:7, it continues, Ke ipen ekastos proston polision avtu, devte, volumen clerus, ke epigenomen, tinos, enikan e kakia avti, estenimin, ke evalon clerus, ke episen o clerus, epi ionan. And each said to pros, his neighbor, ton, and then on, plesion. There's an agreement there. He said in the accusative to his neighbor, come, we should cast clerus, a cleric. We mentioned earlier in another seminar how clerus, the early clerics were chosen by lots. And this is a lot. They're throwing these little dice type things, stones, pebbles. They cast lots over the clothing of Jesus when he was on the cross. And we'll go into this lots a little bit later, and it's an interesting word. And we shall know for what reason this evil is to us. And they cast lots. And the lot, the clerus, fell upon Ionan, epi, upon. And ke ipon prosapton apangilon, the tinos enika e kakia avti esten, enimin, Tisu e ergasia esti. And they said to him, Apango, whenever you see this alpha, gamma, gamma, it has something to do with tell, report, announce, messenger, message, angel, angelos, apangelion, apagilon. Report to us indeed. For what reason this evil, kakia, is to us? Okay, they cast these lots, and the lot came up to Jonah. So Jonah's the person, and they know. So then they're asking to find out what, confess up to your what's going on, Jonah. There's more or less. And what is your ergasia? What is your work? Ergasia, ergonomics being the derivative. And ke pothen erki ke ekpias horas ke ekpiu leu ec. And from where have you come? And from, eccentric, from the center. From what place? Horos. We have horography is a science of map making. What place? And pio, what kind of leu? Laity being people, the English derivative. What kind of people are you? In verse 1:9, ke ipe pros avtus, thulus kyriou emi ego, ke ton theon tu uranu ego sevome, o sepi se tin thalason ke tin xiran. So he reports to them, and he said to them, 1, I am. Ego is the ego. I is the personal pronoun. I am a servant, Kyriou, of the Lord. And I, ego, worship the God, theon, ton, theon. There's a same endings. I worship the God, theon, theology, to uranu, of the uranu, the heaven. We have the planet Uranus, comes from that word. I worship the God of heaven. He's a servant, a doulos, or actually it could have been a slave in some places, who made the epise. We had earlier 4160, whenever you see that. P has a poet or a maker, a doer, somebody that's done something. Made the thalason, the sea, and the xiran, the dry land, cirrhosis on the skin, dryness, comes from that word. 110, ke ephovithison e andres phovon megan, ke ipon prosafton ti tuto episas, dioti egnoson e andres oti ek prosopu kyriou in phevgon oti apingilin aftis. And the men, andros, we have android, is a English derivative. And the men feared, phove, there we got it again, we were mentioning earlier, something to do with fear, phobos, phobia is an English derivative. A great, mega, we had that earlier, and a phovon is the fear. This is the verb, and this is the noun. And they said to him, pros, again, to, what is this you did, the 4160, the doing? And then they put in parentheses, because the men, the andres, android, the men knew, egenos, son, to know. Gnosis has to do with knowledge, to know, that he was fleeing, phevgon, fugitive. He was fleeing, fugitive being the derivative, ek, from the face, kyriou, of the Lord. For he reported, there's the gamma gamma, the apingilin. He reported it to them, a messenger, an angel, something to do with reporting, telling. For he reported it to them of who the Lord, Old Testament Yahweh is one possible pronunciation. So he reports that he's of this people, and his God is Yahweh, the maker of the heaven. And so what did the people on the boat decide to do about it? Verse 111, Ke ipon pros avton, ti pisomen si, ke kopasi I thalassa epham imon, oti thalassa eporeveto ke exigere malon klidona. And they said to him, pros to him, what should we do? There's the doing, the pio. They're asking him. And for the sea, the thalassa, phylactics, the sea abates from us. So they ask him what's the right thing to do. And because it says, for the thalassa went forth and rose up a rather great swell, much as it was in the boat in the Galilee with Jesus and the disciples. And verse 12, Ke ipen ionas pros avtus, arteme ke emvalite istin thalassen, ke kopasi I thalassa aphimon, dioti egnoka ego, oti diame o klidon omegas utos aphimas asti. And Ionas said to them, lift me and cast me into the thalasson, and the thalasson shall abate from you. Because egnoka, the gnosis, the knowledge, I know, ego could have been highlighted also, the ego, personal pronoun I, know that on account of me, this great megas, we had that earlier, this great swell is upon you. So it's because of him. So he tells them that to save them, that they need to throw him into the sea. And of course he would be dead, drown. But we'll find out what happens here. And but in verse 13 it continued, Ke paraviazonto I andres tu epistrepse pros tingin, ke uk I dinanto, oti I thalassa eporeveto, ke exagirato malon epaftus. Well, apparently they didn't want to put him to death that way. So it says, and the men pressed, the Andres and Android, the pressed on to turn pros, tingin, the land, the geology and derivative, and they were not able. So they were trying to get towards land instead of throwing him over right away. For the thalassa went, and it rose up rather upon them. So it got even worse when they tried to turn into the sea. Probably the waves were coming off of the land. And then this is probably in the Mediterranean somewhere. In verse 14, Ke anavoisan pros Kyrion, ke ipan mi damos Kyrie, mi apolometha anakantis psychis tu anthropututu, ke mi thos ephimas ima dikeon, diotisi Kyrie ontropon evulu pepikas. Well, now they're changing their mind. All of a sudden, it's no longer their God, but this God that this man, the stranger, had. And they yelled out to the Lord, not to their God. Before they were yelling out to their God, but now they're yelling out. They become believers. Didn't take a whole lot of preaching to have them to pray out to the Lord. And they said, by no means, O Lord, Kyrie, O Yahweh, should you destroy us because of this psyche, because of this soul, psychology being the derivative, the psyche, the soul, of this anthropos, anthropology of this man. So now, they're saying, don't destroy us because of this man. So they're changing heart. They couldn't go back, so now they go to this man's God and they beg him to help. And should not be imputed against us the blood of the just, the ima, hemoglobin, the hema. On ima, put an H in the, has to do with blood, hema, ima, the blood of the just. For you, Kyrie, Yahweh, in which manner you want, you do. God does what he wants to do. And that's just the way it is. When man gets to that point, they know that God is sovereign. K elevon ton ionan, K exevalon af ton istin thalason, K sde thalasa ek tu salu af tis. And they took Jonah. You'll see that the word Jonah, his name in Greek changes. In Greek language, that's what happens if it's in the nominative of the subject. It can be an as, and if it's in the accusative, it can be on. In the article will be in the same case and number as the person it modifies. And they took Jonah, Ionan, and they cast him into the thalasin. Okay, and the thalassa stood from its tossing about. So, somewhat the same as what happened when Jesus spoke out and told the sea to be quiet. It stopped from its tossing about. God has the power of the sea. Jesus had the power of the sea. Here it was Yahweh. In the New Testament, it's Isu. Jesus has the same power because he's God. Verse 16. Ke ephovithison e andres phovo megalo ton kyrion ke ethison thesion to kyriou ke ifxanto tas evhas. And the sea, thalassa, stood from its tossing about to salu, and the men, the andres, android, ephovithison, there's the verb, the phovo, fearing, a great, megalo, had that earlier, mega, phovo, a great fear of the Lord, kyrion. And that's just what the disciples had when Jesus, they had a great fear of Jesus, and they saw what he did in calming the sea. And they sacrificed a sacrifice to Kyrio. There's the to in the dative, it's an indirect object, to the Lord. And they vowed the vows. We have a word on the word pamphlet on vows. You might like to look up and download and read all about vowing. We had that in a couple of seminars ago. And it continues down. Ke prosetaxe Kyrios kiti megalo katapin, and the Lord, Kyrios, assigned a great megalo kiti. We have a cetacean as a whale. But in the Old Testament, this was way before they were classifying animals in science in college, and many places in the world at that time, Kiti wasn't necessarily a whale. It was actually in mythology, it was a sea monster. And if you know a little bit about the story of Andromeda, the daughter of an Ethiopian king, she was attached or had to do with a sea monster taking her somewhere, sort of like this with Jonah and the whale. And it mentions in Homer a sea monster. And later in Job we get into Leviathan. What is Leviathan? And of course Moby Dick and Herman Melville tried to turn it into the whale and Leviathan in the Bible. But whatever this sea monster was, I'm sure a lot of people out here now are going to come up with ideas of submarines and people from outer space coming down and swallowing up Jonah and them being around. But anyway, I put down whale because that's what everybody knows. If I put a sea monster, which I could have in the Bible, maybe I should have, but I followed tradition in that case, and actually I didn't find out about this sea monster information until afterwards. So this great sea monster to swallow down Ionan, Jonah, and Kein Ionas, and now the Jonah, there's the subject instead of Ionan was the the object. And Jonah was in being the derivative, and the kilia, in the belly. Koi has to do with the belly and the stomach. It's in the English derivatives. In the belly of the kiptus, tris, three, we have tri, English derivative, imeris, ephemeral, having to do with days, 3 days, and tris, niktas, night, being nocturnal, being the English derivative. So, in the belly of the whale, 3 days and 3 nights. Now we know, if we go into the New Testament, that this is something that is mentioned. And first we'll go to Matthew 12:39 to 41, and Jesus says, and answering, he said to them, a wicked generation and adulteress seeks anxiously a sign, and a sign shall not be given it, except the sign of Jonah the prophet. So Jonah was a prophet. For as Jonah was in the belly of the Ketus 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the Ge of the earth 3 days and 3 nights. Ninevite men shall rise up in the judgment with this generation and shall condemn it. For they repented at the proclamation of Jonah. And behold, a greater than Jonah is here. And then again, Jesus reemphasizes this in the 16th chapter, verse 4. Wicked and adulterous generation seeks anxiously a sign, and a sign shall not be given it, except the sign of Jonah the prophet. And leaving them behind, he went forth. And it's a little bit, reads a little bit different in Luke in the 11th chapter, verse 29 to 32. It says, and the multitudes being gathered together, he began to say, this generation is wicked. It seeks anxiously a sign, and no sign shall be given it except the sign of Jonah the prophet. For as Jonah became a sign to the Ninevites, so shall be also the Son of Man to this generation. The queen of the south shall arise in the judgment with the men of this generation and shall condemn them. For she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, more than a Solomon is here. Men of Nineveh shall rise up in the generation with this generation and shall condemn it. For they repented at the proclamation of Jonah, and behold, more than a Jonah is here. So here Jonah was in the belly of the whale 3 days and 3 nights, and this is what Jesus is saying will happen with him. That's going to be the sign, his crucifixion and resurrection time. And we know that there is a lot of studies being to do with the wording, the 3 days and the 3 nights, and when the different times and words appear in the Gospels of the resurrection and the days. And we're not going to go into all the speculation of all these things, but more or less bringing out what the actual words are, and let others do a lot of that. But we'll continue again in the next seminar on the 2nd chapter of Jonah, and God bless. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.